Thank you. When you turn on the TV and surf the channels, it's invariably that you'll see a story about death and disaster. It'd be easy to get a sense of hopelessness in the face of this, yet every day people approach life with a sense of hope. As a neurosurgeon, I've been fortunate enough to learn from my patients what it means to hold and cradle hope, especially when the odds are against you. I specialise in the treatment of children and adults with brain tumours. Brain tumours can affect those parts of the brain that make us who we are. They can steal our ability to walk, to speak, to see, and in time they can even steal our consciousness. Unfortunately, 50% of all brain tumours are malignant. That's brain cancer. And for me, brain cancer is the worst of all the cancers. It is totally indiscriminate as to whom it affects. Symptoms can come on suddenly. They can be devastating. Many people who are diagnosed with brain cancer are forced to face a fate that they never thought was possible, that their lives are measured in months and weeks, and that their hopes and dreams may never be achieved. Sometimes they're told to go home and make arrangements for end of life, and it's at this time that patients display amazing courage, driven by the hope that maybe they may be the exception to the rule, or that there may be an alternative treatment out there that will work for them, or that their so-called inoperable tumour may be operable. They plead with their doctors to try something, anything, that may make their life a little better or a little longer. Many of these patients come to see me in the hope or in the search of someone who will try something or take a chance on them. But the trouble is, we're not taught to offer medical treatments based on chance or taking a chance. At medical school, we are taught to review the medical literature. Is there evidence? It's evidence-based medicine. We're taught to consult our colleagues and gain their approval. Is there consensus? And we are taught that you should evaluate quality of life parameters, and if you believe that the quality of life is such with the treatment that it's not worth living, then of course you should withhold the treatment. So what happens to a doctor who ignores these norms and acts contrary to them and offers maybe, say, an operation for which there is no evidence, which has maybe been presented in front of a multidisciplinary team and thought to be futile, and which has the likely outcome of poor quality of life? Well, that doctor is me, and it hasn't been a pretty journey. At a local level, I've had hospitals restrict my privileges. I've had rules made for me that don't apply to any other doctor. I even had one of the hospitals once say to me, all doctors can have as many patients as you like in the hospital, as long as there's beds. But they said to me that, oh, you can't operate on that child with a brain tumour because you've already got one patient in the hospital. I've even had the president of our governing body call me and say, you must stop offering second opinions that are contrary to the first. So why would I, in this hostile professional environment, continue to offer opinions and surgeries based on patients' wishes and not on those criteria? Of all the so-called inoperable tumours that I operate on, brainstem gliomas draw the most pointed and damning criticism from my colleagues, many of whom have accused me of offering false hope. Brainstem gliomas are tumours that arise from within the brainstem, and the brainstem is arguably the most sensitive, delicate, vital part of the human brain. Every voluntary function and many involuntary functions, such as breathing, either pass through or originate in the brainstem. Think of it as a conduit no larger than your thumb through which all nerve fibres pass. Hence this statement made by the father of neurosurgery, Harvey Cushing, over 100 years ago, but which is echoed today by many of our leaders in neurosurgery when faced with a brainstem glioma. Surgery on the brainstem should be considered taboo, out of bounds to even the most skilled of surgeons. This patient is Fiona. She had a brainstem glioma. It was benign. She saw a neurosurgeon in Sydney who deemed it inoperable. She accepted that diagnosis. 7 years later, she was quadriplegic in a wheelchair. She saw me, and although she could still breathe and speak, even these functions were deteriorating, such that her oncologist said that you probably only have weeks or months to live. I said that I could take out a tumour. She asked if I could. I said yes, but you will still be quadriplegic after surgery. She almost glibly accepted this, so I felt compelled to put my point forward. Look, why would you want me to operate? Surely I would just be prolonging your death and not extending your life. After all, you're quadriplegic, you can't even scratch your nose or go for a walk on the beach. At this stage, she became a little bit furious with me. She goes, "How dare you tell me what is quality of life for me? I have 2 teenage daughters, and quality of life for me is the ability to impart my wisdom on those 2 girls when they need it, at a time when they need it most." And suddenly it occurred to me that I had been projecting my ideas of quality of life onto her. You see, when a doctor says a tumour is inoperable, he's not saying it's inoperable. Any tumour can be taken out. But what he's saying is that, in my opinion, the risk of surgery outweighs the benefits. And in my opinion, your quality of life is such that life is not worth living. But that photo was taken 10 years after the surgery. Today, she's still alive and well, and she came to thank me for allowing her to see her teenage daughters grow to adulthood. The next story is about Kina, a beautiful little French girl, 8 years of age, who also had a brainstem glioma, but this one was malignant. So it's brain cancer of the brain stem. Her French medical team had exhausted all treatment options, and when the word was out that I was going to offer surgery to her to buy her some time, this article appeared on the front page of a major daily French newspaper. The substance of the article was that any operation on Kina would not be in her best interest, and Dr Teo must be operating or must be motivated by his own self-interest. When I tried to organise the surgery in France, they blocked that. I then had surgery scheduled to be done in Luxembourg, and the French doctors also blocked that. Time was running out. Kina was deteriorating very rapidly. She had to be admitted to hospital. She had breathing difficulties, couldn't walk anymore. Her quality of life was very poor, and I started to second-guess myself. Why am I offering surgery? After all, it's malignant. I can't cure her. Her quality of life is poor now. It's all too difficult. And then I received an email from Kina's mum. It said that, "With all my might, I hope that you'll not let us down. You are our only hope, and despite all the risks, you have all my trust. At this stage, my only wish is to spend one last Christmas with Kina." That email from Kina's mum was a clear and timely reminder to me that it wasn't about me, it wasn't about the politics of medicine, it wasn't about the logistics of organising a case in a foreign country. It was all about a mother's wish to spend one last Christmas with her 8-year-old daughter. We did the surgery in Germany. It went well. Kina was better after surgery than before. She could walk. She enjoyed a few more months of quality life with her family, but sadly, she never made it to Christmas. Within days of hearing of Kina's death, I received these images of another child with a malignant brainstem glioma in Singapore. She was 2 years old. Her name was Jennifer. Her mother had sent these x-rays to 7 of the major brain tumour centres around the globe and received the same unanimous decision. This was a malignant DIPG, diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma, the worst of all the worst tumours. If it was a malignant DIPG, she was 2 years old, she couldn't have radiotherapy, they are truly inoperable, and she would have died probably within weeks. When her mother showed me the x-rays, I also thought it was a malignant DIPG. I looked at them, but there was one very small feature that looked a little bit unusual. So I'm not quite sure why I did it. I was in a bad space. I was trying to get over the devastating news that Keena had just died and hadn't made it to Christmas. But I said, look, there is a 99% chance that the doctors are right, that this is a DIPG, it's truly inoperable, and if I were to try and do surgery on her, the outcome is likely to be poor, but there is just one feature that looks a little bit odd, and I'd be prepared to offer you surgery. I was half hoping she wouldn't accept it, but she did. I did the surgery that afternoon. It took 6 hours, and I managed to get the entire tumour out. Furthermore, it wasn't malignant, it was benign. So the hope that family showed by making the decision to go ahead with surgery was correct. This is Jennifer 6 weeks later. Very cute, and she's likely cured. In all three cases, the decision made by or on behalf of the parents included a very, very large element of hope. Hope drove the process. If it wasn't for hope, I would never have done those surgeries. If you look at those three criteria that we talked about, those patients would not have had surgery. Was there medical literature to support my decision? Absolutely not. No one operates on brainstem gliomas, and especially when they look like that. Was there consensus? Well, there wasn't consensus. Well, in fact, there was consensus, but the consensus was to do exactly the opposite. And what about quality of life parameters? Well, I think Fiona put that one to rest. I will never, ever question someone's idea of quality of life if it doesn't fit with my idea of quality of life. So why did they make these decisions? They made them because life is precious. And I've learned from my patients the fragility of life. I've heard so many of my colleagues say, oh, if I was like that, I wouldn't want to live. Well, firstly, you're not like that. And secondly, when you're staring down the barrel at death, suddenly your grip on life becomes a whole lot tighter. So there wasn't consensus, and there wasn't medical literature or evidence-based medicine, and if their idea of quality of life didn't fit with mine, what was it that made me operate? It was patient autonomy. And patient autonomy simply means that you give respect to the patient's wishes. The fourth feature is me, the surgeon. What about the surgeon? Well, in 1952, the world thought that it was impossible to climb Mount Everest. But in 1953, a very dashing, handsome young New Zealand mountaineer had the gall to believe he could climb Mount Everest, and he did. He conquered it in 1953. His name was Sir Edmund Hillary. Of course, I'd like to think that I was the Sir Edmund Hillary of neurosurgery, but I'm not. The Sir Edmund Hillary of neurosurgery is the patient, and it's the patient's relatives, or the relatives of the parents of a child with a terminal illness. They're the ones with the vision, the hope, and the courage to conquer Mount Everest. Sure, I'm not saying that the guide, Tenzing Norgay, doesn't have to have courage and drive and skill. You do. And not only that, he also has a good team of people around him who also have that skill. He also has to be responsible and to make sure that the Hillarys of this world don't get told they can climb Everest when they can't. If they don't have oxygen, if they're not well trained, if they're not well equipped, of course, it's Tenzing Norgay's job to make sure they know that it can't be done. But if there's a faint hope that it can be done, then they need to know that. Patients teach us that this is not our journey, this is their journey. Hope is the essential ingredient in the essence of life. We all need hope. When we wake up in the morning, we hope that we're going to live to see the next day. We all hope that the world one day will be a world without war, without animal cruelty, without poverty. As doctors caring for patients and families who have been given the diagnosis of a terminal illness but who remain hopeful, our job is to respect and nurture that hope, not shatter it. False hope? There's no such thing. Thank you.